بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على نبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه تبارك وتعالى في محكم كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن هذه أمتكم أمة واحدة وأنا ربكم فاتقون آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. It is indeed a great honor for us, and we begin by thanking Allah Azza wa Jal for giving us an opportunity to once again gather in these nights of Muharram, nights of Aza, nights of blessings, nights when the Malaika come down, nights when we are told even Lady Fatimatu Zahra salawatullahi wa salamu alayha attends the majalis of her son Hussein ibn Ali Sayyid al-Shuhada salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. We must understand the value of these nights. These nights have so many blessings, not only because of the azab, but also because of the ihya of the amr of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Because we gather here every night, we share some of the riwayat of the Ahlul Bayt, we discuss the meaning of some of the verses of the Holy Quran, we spread the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and then we weep for Hussein alayhis salam. So it is all full of blessings. These 10, 12 nights, let us not underestimate the value of these nights. And inshallah, we will all participate in these nights together and take maximum reward by participating in these majalis of Azza, inshallah. The subject that we have chosen for discussion is community psychology and Islamic perspective. So obviously, in the introductory lecture, we need to discuss and we need to define what we mean by the topic. What do you mean community psychology? What is community psychology? Community psychology, obviously when we talk of community, you know it is a group of people with a shared identity. Whatever that identity may be, when they come together, they form a community. And psychology is a mindset, a worldview, a way of perceiving things, an attitude. However, community psychology is actually one branch of psychology that has been started recently and is now being discussed in academic institutions. It is being taught in universities. Does Islam have something to say about community psychology or not? Let me give you two examples so that you understand what we mean by community psychology. First of all, when we say community, we are talking about the community of mu'mineen. Community psychology, if you take a general subject like, for example, bankruptcy or homelessness, imagine a general subject like this. There are two ways of looking at it. You can either look at it using the prism of individuals to try and examine why did this individual become bankrupt or become homeless? Is it that they mismanaged their funds? Is it that they were not careful with the way they budgeted their finances? And so on and so forth. This is looking at the question individually. However, the same question of homelessness or bankruptcy, we can look at it through the prism of community, a wider lens, when we say maybe the issue is economic problems in the society. The issue is all the financial institutions have started taking too much interest. And you look at it in a broader sense, not looking at one individual, but you're looking at the community at large. And then that becomes a community issue. And when you examine it, it becomes part of community psychology. Another example. Religiousness. We start saying our community is becoming less and less religious. Now, you can look at it, the causes, the factors that cause this individually. You can say maybe there is lack of proper upbringing. All right? The parents are not playing their part in raising the children well, and that is why people are turning away from religion. Or you can look at it on a communal level and say the structures that we have in our community, like our madrasas, for example, need revamping. So the same question of why people are turning away from religion, you can look at it through the prism of individuals or the community. And therefore, when we look at the definition of community psychology, it means the influence of an individual on the community and the influence of the community on an individual. This is what we mean by community psychology. Does Islam have anything to say about this? Yes. Obviously, Islam is a religion of fitrah. Islam is a religion of our primordial nature. Allah Azza wa Jal has created us. He knows us best. And as such, Allah Azza wa Jal knows that human beings are social creatures. Human beings cannot live alone. They need a community. They need a society. If you imagine those hermits who leave the community and the society and go and live far away, on mountaintops, in forests, many a times you'll find that these hermits have problems, mental problems, psychological problems. Why? Because they are doing something which goes against their nature, against their fitrah. It is in the fitrah of human beings to live as a community. And if we say Islam is the religion of fitrah, Islam must cater for that. If you want to torture someone, one of the ways that they use to torture someone is known as solitary confinement. That means you lock someone away in one room alone. Even if you don't touch that person, even if you give that person good food, you just lock them away in a room alone. After some time, you find that person starts losing his mind. What is the problem? Are you not getting food? Yes. Food is coming. Drink? Yes. All the facilities are there. But because I'm lacking a community environment, because I'm lacking interaction with other fellow human beings, I cannot survive. And therefore we find it is in the fitrah of every human being to want interaction with other human beings. And because Islam is the religion of fitrah, Islam has catered for that. And that is why we find even in all the Islamic ahkam, all the ibadat, all the muamalat, there is always a focus on community. Look at any act of worship. Look at salah, for example. You are told, yes, you can pray at home, you can pray alone. But if you come and pray in the masjid, 70 times more reward. If the jama'ah is bigger, multiply the reward. Even that act of ibadah, which is known as a very personal act of ibadah, which is fasting, the most personal act of worship is fasting. Why? Because a person who is fasting, you can't know whether that person is fasting or not, unless he tells you. And that is why they say fasting is the most personal act of ibadah. Even those who fast in the month of Ramadan, we say, no, this is not a community act. This has got no aspect of society and community. This is a personal act of worship. Still we are told, no, if you are fasting and you invite somebody for iftar, you get this much thawab. After you finish fasting in the month of Ramadan, come together for Eid. Celebrate Eid. Give fitrah to those in need. So again, even in this act, which is a very personal act of worship, there is an aspect of community. And so we understand that it is very important. Why did you choose this subject of all subjects? What is the importance of this subject? In order to answer this question, we turn to a beautiful narration from the Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, in which he says, مَثَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي تَوَادِّهِمْ وَتَرَاحُمِهِمْ كَمَثَلِ الْجَسَدِ. The example of believers in their love for one another and their compassion for one another is an example of one single body. And then he continues and he says, if part of the body falls ill, the whole body suffers from fever and from distress. And so we find that our futures, our destiny is intertwined. In this age of individualism, where you think, no, only me, I think about myself, I think about my immediate family. All I have to do with the community is that I attend. The case, our destiny is intertwined. The analogy that can be given for this is the analogy of people who are traveling in the sea on a boat. If one person says, I am going to drill a hole in that boat, and people standing on the other side of the boat start saying, that has nothing to do with me. He is right on that edge of the boat. He's drilling a hole, that is his problem. What happens at the end? The boat sinks, everyone drowns. And therefore, if we keep that analogy in mind, we understand the importance of this subject. Normally, when the majalis are given, the emphasis is on individual piety. The emphasis is on individual reform. Change yourself, become a better believer. Very good, yes. But we also have to start thinking in communal terms. We also have to start thinking as a community. You have an identity as a community. Allah in the Holy Quran, the way He addresses human beings, sometimes He addresses them individually, sometimes as a community. He classifies people into communities. Haven't you heard of phrases like قَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ, قَوْمٌ مُجْرِمِينَ, قَوْمٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ, قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, and so on and so forth. So many times Allah classifies human beings in communities. The community that doesn't think, the community that doesn't understand, the community that doesn't contemplate, the community of zalimeen. That means, yes, we are individuals, and yes, we will go in our own graves, but do not think for one moment that you do not play a role in the life of every other member of this community. And so on and so forth. Every individual of this community plays either a positive role in the community, takes the community forward, or a negative role in the community, takes a community backward. So now, inshallah, in these 12 nights, with the help of Allah Azza wa Jal, we will start looking at the issue of community and examine issues from a communal perspective rather than an individual perspective. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. What about those who say, we don't want much to do with the community? There are people amongst us who like to keep a distance from the community. Either they don't get along with someone in the community, they have quarreled with someone in the community, or they have a problem with those who are in the leadership, or for whatever reason, they say, we don't want to participate in the community. The Prophet has a beautiful hadith for these kind of people. The Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi he advises the people, he says, إن الشيطان ذئب الإنسان كذئب الغنم يأخذ القاصية والشاذة فإياكم والشعاب وعليكم بالجماعة. The Prophet gives such a beautiful analogy, such a beautiful example, such a beautiful point, a fact, in which he says, indeed, shaitan is a wolf that preys on human beings, just like the ordinary wolf preys on the sheep. What kind of sheep does the wolf go after? Those that are left behind, those that are not with the flock, those that are not with the community, those that keep aloof from the rest. They are the targets of the wolf. Similarly, if you keep yourself away from the community, whatever your reason may be, you say, no, I'll be better off on my own, then the Prophet says, then you are the target of shaitan. Shaitan is looking for those kind of people who keep away from the jama'ah. Then he says, so be careful of divisions and remain with the jama'ah, remain with the community. If you have differences, you can always sort out your differences. Do not split. Do not keep aloof from the community. This is very important. And hence we find that if we want to understand the problems we face as a community, if we want to discuss possible solutions to these problems, then we have to look at the issue of community psychology. We have to study the issue of community psychology. And this is why we have selected this issue. With the help of Allah Azza wa Jal, to the best of our ability, we'll discuss some of these issues in the coming nights. For tonight, however, I want to concentrate on one hadith of the Holy Prophet, which is relating to the community, and it's a very beautiful hadith. In that hadith, the Holy Prophet says, مَثَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي مَا بَيْنَهُمْ كَمَثَلِ الْبُنْيَانِ. The example of believers in relation to one another is the example of a building. يُمْسِكُ بَعْضُهُ بَعْضًا وَيَشُدُّ بَعْضُهُ بَعْضًا. Parts of it hold each other up, and parts of it support one another. You know, when you have a building and you have bricks, bricks support the other bricks and hold the other bricks upright. So the Prophet says that the relationship between members of the community is like this, like a building. Now, how do you support one another? This hadith has been beautifully interpreted and explained by one of the great scholars and mystics who is alive today, Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli. Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli, he explains this hadith beautifully. He says, the community of believers have to support one another in three ways. Number one, they have to support one another materially. Now, supporting one another materially, what does this mean? He gives numerous examples. We'll quote some of his examples. The first example, obviously, when you're supporting one another materially, we mean financially. Those in the community who are suffering financially, and if you are able to support them, you support them. There is a lot of reward for it. Ibn Abbas, who was one of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, he narrates that at one time Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam was in the state of i'tikaf in Masjidul Haram. You know, i'tikaf has certain rules and regulations. You are not allowed to break the i'tikaf unless you have valid reasons for doing so. And the Imam was in the process of tawaf. Now imagine, Imam is in i'tikaf in Masjidul Haram in the process of tawaf. A man comes, Ibn Abbas is there, he's the one who witnesses this and he narrates this. A man comes and says, Yabna Rasulillah, I have financial problems, I am in debt to someone. Can you repay my debt? The Imam replies and says, Oh Fulan, I at the moment unfortunately do not have anything that I can offer you in terms of money or financial assistance. The man says, okay, if you cannot give me money or repay my debt, at least do this much for me, that speak to my creditor and request him to give me more time, because he is threatening me that he is going to get me imprisoned. So Ibn Abbas says, our second Imam alayhi salam, at that moment, in between the tawaf, he leaves his tawaf and he goes out with that man to speak to the creditor. On his way out, Ibn Abbas asks, Yabna Rasulillah, are you not in the state of i'tikaf? How can you broke your tawaf and now you are breaking your i'tikaf? And he says, how can you do this? The Imam alayhi salam replies, I heard from my father, who heard from my grandfather, that fulfilling and helping one who is in need, fulfilling the need of one who is in need financially, carries the reward of 9,000 i'tikaf. And therefore I found it more prudent to break this i'tikaf and go and help this individual. So the first example Ayatollah Jawadi gives for supporting each other materially is this anecdote of how we should support each other financially when the need arises. Supporting each other materially, another example he gives is feeding one another, feeding the believers. It'amut ta'am. Alhamdulillah, in this community there is this sunnah of niyaz, where the mu'mineen, some mu'mineen donate and all the mu'mineen gather and eat together. Do you know the value of this? It carries a lot of thawab. It carries a lot of thawab. And especially if in that gathering there are some mu'mineen who cannot afford food and they come and sit and they eat there, the one who has donated gets a lot of reward. So much so that the riwayah tells us, min mujibati maghfirati ar-Rabb it'amut ta'am. One of the things that brings down the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal is feeding a believer. And our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. He tells one of his companions that if there is ever a believer who sleeps on a full stomach, and in his neighborhood there is another believer who sleeps hungry, then Allah tells his malaika, oh my malaika, bear witness that that servant has disobeyed me and I am displeased with him. So how will you know whether somebody is in your neighborhood who is a believer and he is sleeping hungry if you do not keep ties with the community? Another example he gives for the first category, which is material support, is giving a place of shelter to a believer. If you have an extra residence, an extra house, there is a believer who needs a house to stay, and you can give it to him for a reasonable rent, and yet you turn him away, then the Imam says, Allah says, he did not give my believer a residence, I will not give him residence in Jannah. Material support. And Ayatollah Jawadi goes on, he gives many examples, but one example which I found would really apply to this community and many other communities is that he says that members of one community should pay special attention when a member of their community comes to buy something from them. If you are a shopkeeper and somebody of your own community, of the believers, of the mu'mineen, comes to your shop to buy something from you, you don't charge him double because you know he's very rich. Huh? You don't charge him double because you know that he is from your community. In fact, the hadith says from the Holy Prophet that ribh al-mu'min min al-mu'min riba. Taking excessive profit from a believer is like riba, haram. Haram. In fact, what should you do? Either give it to him at a better price or at least at the market value. Giving it to him at a better price is even better. Of course, you will say there are two sides to the story. If you start giving believers at a better price, then they will come and buy from you and go and sell at a higher price. Obviously, there is a balance here. But Ayatollah Jawadi gives this example. These are all examples of the first kind of mutual support, because we said we as a community are like a building. We support one another. The building supports one another from falling and collapsing. If we do not support one another, our community may collapse. So the first kind of support he mentions is material support. The second type of support he mentions is non-material support. Ma'nawi support. Like what, for example? He says, support each other by giving each other good advice. Give each other sincere advice. Want what is good for your brother. The same way you want what is good for yourself, want what is good for your brother. If you know that he's going wrong somewhere, guide him. Why? Let him go and fall in a ditch. No, because you are in one boat. If he sinks, you sink. So make sure if you are able to guide. And that is why the sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, as a beautiful hadith, he says, أَحَبُّ إِخْوَانِي إِلَيَّ مَنْ أَهْدَى إِلَيَّ عُيُوبِي. What a beautiful hadith. It says, the most beloved of my brothers to me is the one who gifts me my faults. What does that mean? That means when somebody tells you about your faults, when somebody tells you about your mistakes, with a sincere intention to guide you, then that is a gift that the person has given you. The Imam says, my most beloved brother is one who gifts me my faults. Why? Because he has gifted me something that will enable me to better myself, to improve myself. So this is one example of supporting one another by non-material means, giving sincere advice to one another. Another example Ayatollah Jawadi gives for this kind of support. He says, hiding and concealing the secrets and faults of your brother. Your brother confided something in you. Keep that in confidence. Don't go and tell anyone else. He didn't confide in you. You came to know. Still, keep that with you. Do not go and divulge it to others. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, وَاكْتُمْ سِرَّهُ وَعَيْبَهُ وَأَظْهِرْ مِنْهُ الْحَسَنِ. When he's talking about how you should behave with your brother in Iman, he says, hide his secrets and his faults and make known that which is good about him. Every person in the community has some good in him. That good is what you should highlight. Not the opposite, where we go and put the magnifying glass on the faults of the individuals. This person's fault, that person's fault. So this is another way of supporting one another. How? With non-material means. And then he gives another example and he says, respect each other and preserve the dignity of one another. You know, the dignity of a human being, the respect of a human being, the self-respect is very important. Some people say, I would rather give my life than my dignity. Did Imam Hussein alayhi salam not say that? Hayhat minna dhilla. This is what it means. Dhilla is where your dignity is lost, where you are humiliated. He said, hayhat minna dhilla. We will not accept dhilla. We will accept shahada, but not dhilla. So you should, as a community, preserve the dignity of each other. How? So many examples. Abu Basir was one of the companions of the sixth Imam. He comes and tells the sixth Imam alayhi salam that I have one relative, he is in need. But he has a sense of pride in him, a sense of self-worth in him, that if I offer him money as sadaqah, or if I offer him money as zakat, he doesn't take it. am I allowed to give him zakat without telling him this is zakat? You understand the question? He asks the Imam, am I allowed to give him zakat without telling him this is zakat? The Imam says, yes, you can give him zakat. Don't tell him this is zakat. Preserve his respect and his dignity. Said Ali Qadi Taba is a famous anecdote. He used to go into the greengrocer's shop and he used to buy the rotten vegetables. Somebody met him and said, Sayyidina, what are you doing? You're buying rotten vegetables? He explained to him that no, this man is in need, but he has dignity. I don't want to go and give him money that this is to help you. Rather, I go in and I buy the rotten vegetables. In that way, I help him. So you support one another, but you maintain each other's dignity. And so these are the two ways, what? The material and the non-material. And the third way of supporting each other that Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli mentions when relating to the hadith of the Prophet, where the Prophet says that you are to each other like the bricks of the building, holding each other up and supporting each other. He says the third type of support is emotional support. What do we mean by emotional support? Then he gives examples. The first example of emotional support is putting joy and happiness into the heart of a believer. The Prophet said, "Man sarra mu'minan faqad sarrani, wa man sarrani faqad sarra Allah." Whoever pleases a believer has pleased me. Whoever puts joy in the heart of a believer has put joy in my heart. And whoever pleases me has pleased Allah Azza wa Jal. Who does not wish to please Allah? Who does not wish to please Rasulullah? Please the believers. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam goes one step further. In one narration he tells us that when a mu'min will be raised from the grave on the day of Qiyamah, there will be a form that is raised with him. And as he goes through the terrifying phases of Qiyamah, because you know there is Ahwalul Qiyamah. Ahwal comes from Hawl. Hawl means terror, terrifying. There are certain things you will face in Qiyamah that will scare you out of your wits. Terrifying things. The Imam says, when this believer faces these terrifying things in Qiyamah, that form that is raised with him will tell him, do not worry, do not be afraid. Allah has kept a beautiful place for you in Jannah. Gives him glad tidings, so the man becomes at ease. Again he moves forward. Something else comes to terrify him, to scare him. Again that form gives him a means of calming down. He calms him down. And then finally, when he finishes all these scary stages and phases of the Day of Judgment, he turns to that form and he says, what a good companion you are. Who are you? And he says, I am that joy that you put in the heart of a mu'min. I am that surur and that joy that you put in the heart of a believer. And so this is one way of emotionally supporting one another. Another example of how one supports another in the community emotionally. Ayatollah Jawadi gives numerous examples. Another example he gives, he says, accept the excuses of your brother. Sometimes you have an agreement, we'll meet somewhere, and he comes late or he doesn't come. He owes you money. You go to him, he says, he gives you an excuse. The Imam says, إِذَا اِعْتَذَرَ فَقْبَلْ عُذْرَهُ. He doesn't stop there. He says, if he gives you an excuse, accept his excuse. Not only that, he moves forward and he says, وَإِنْ ظَنَنْتَ أَنَّ الْأُمُورَ عَلَى خِلَافِ مَا قَالَ. Even if you suspect that he is lying to you, he is lying to you. This excuse is not true. For example, he says, I was not in Mombasa. You go to him and you say, What happened? I was not in Mombasa. And you saw him in Mombasa. You know, still. This is emotional support. This is emotional support. You're a community. You support one another. And there are numerous examples in deference to the program and the timing that we have. We will not go into more depth, but you have understood there are 3 ways of supporting one another, according to Ayatollah Jawadi. Materially, through non-material means, and emotionally. And of course, there are always exceptions to the rule. There are certain individuals in the community that the riwayat tell us that don't accept any support from them and don't ask them for any support. The community is made up of different kinds of individuals. Everyone is not the same. Everyone does not have the same attitudes. Everyone does not have the same behavior. So there are certain people in the community, we are told, don't even ask them for any support, don't expect any support from them. What are these? Who are these people in the community? Number 1, liars. Hadith tells us, don't expect any support from any liar in your community. Why? Because the liar is like a mirage. It makes things that are far seem near, and makes things that are near seem far. This hadith. Number 2, don't ever ask for or expect support from spongers and freeloaders. Who are spongers and freeloaders? Cheapskates. These are people who don't work but depend on others for their livelihood. They don't work hard. They just sit around lounging and sponging off of others. They're known as spongers. Don't ever expect support from these people, because the hadith says that whenever you ask such people for support, they will look for their own benefit first before your benefit. You don't expect anything from them. These are the people whom you should avoid. And the third group, the fools. Don't expect support from fools. Why? Because even when they want to support you, they will end up harming you. Even if they have sincere intentions, they will end up harming you. And so the exceptions are there. But generally, the riwayat are clear. The riwayat are plenty. That we should always support one another in all the ways possible. In that way, we can become a strong community, inshaAllah ta'ala. Please recite one salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The nights of Azaa are upon us. And the issue of Azadari, the issue of crying for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, is something that is raised time and time again. Why do we cry for Imam? Who has said that we should cry for Imam? Do you know that the sunnah of crying for Aba Abdullah al-Hussein started from the time of Adam alayhi salam? Can you switch off the lights? Okay. From Adam alayhi salam, in one tradition we are told when Adam ate from the tree and he was sent out of Jannah and he was weeping, Adam alayhi salam cried for many years. Because you know, when he was distanced from the mercy of Allah, from the proximity of Allah, it hurt him and he was weeping. One day, the tradition tells us, Jibreel alayhi salam comes to Adam. He says, "Oh Adam, I will teach you one dua. If you recite this dua, Allah will forgive you." He says, "What dua is this?" He says, "Recite Allahumma bihaqqi Muhammadin wa anta mahmud, wa bihaqqi Aliyin wa anta al-a'la, wa bihaqqi Fatima wa anta fatiru as-samawati wal-ard, wa bihaqqi al-Hasan wa anta al-Muhsin, وبحق الحسين وأنت قديم الإحسان." So Adam alayhi salam begins reciting this dua, but when he reaches the name of Hussein, tears start flowing down from his eyes. Oh Jibreel, what name is this you have taught me? That just by mentioning it, tears have started flowing uncontrollably from my eyes. And Jibreel tells him that the last prophet will have a grandson who will be martyred mercilessly in Karbala. And Adam alayhi salam, Abul Bashar, begins to cry. The crying for Hussein started from the time of Adam. Nuh alayhi salam cried for Hussein. Ibrahim alayhi salam cried for Hussein. All the prophets cried for Hussein. And when Imam al-Hussein was born, and the prophet was sitting with the baby Hussein, kissing Hussein, hugging Hussein, at that time Jibreel comes down and he says, Ya Muhammad, do you love this baby? He says, I love him so much, I don't know why. My heart has a very strong attachment for this child. Jibreel says, do you know what your ummah will do to this child? Do you know what they will do? And then he recites the first marthiyah, and he recites the first majlis, and the Prophet hears it and begins to weep. And then the Prophet repeats that same majlis for Imam Ali alayhi salam and Fatimatu Zahra alayhi salam. After listening to what will happen in Karbala, Fatima alayhi salam asks one question. She says, Baba, will you be there when my Hussein is martyred? She says, no, my dear, I will not be there. Will Ali be there? No. What about me? No, Fatima, you will not be there. What about my Hassan? Hassan will not be there, oh Baba. Then who will cry for my Hussein? In response, the Prophet said, oh Fatima, don't worry. Allah will create a community and their elders will cry for the elders of Hussein. Their children will cry for the children of Hussein. Yes, Azadaro. Remember that this silsila of marthia and of majlis started from that time. और ये भी बात है कि एक ऐसा मरसिया तारीख़ में मिलता है कि जो मशहूर व मारूफ है, और वो है देबल खुजाई का मरसिया. रिवायत में मिलता है कि आशूर का दिन था और हमारे और आपके 8वें इमाम रिज़ा अलैहिस्सलाम बैठे हुए थे. असहाब भी घर में मौजूद थे और ख़वातीन भी पर्दे के पीछे बैठी हुई थी. एक मर्तबा देबल के टाइम में गया, वहाँ पे इमाम के पास गया. इमाम ने पूछा, देबल क्या तेरे पास कोई मरसिया है? देबल ने कहा, हाँ मौला. फौरन इमाम ने कुर्सी मंगवाई. कहा, बे देबल बैठ और पढ़. तो देबल ने पढ़ना शुरू किया. अफातिमु लौ खिलतिल हुसैन मुजद्दला. या फातिमा, अगर आप हुसैन को खून में बदर देखती, वक़द मात अत्शानन बिशत्ति फुराती, वो हुसैन जो फुरात के किनारे पे मारा गया. इदन ललतमतिल खद्द फातिमु इंदहु, अगर आप देखती तो अपने रुखसारे पर तमाचे मारती. व अजरैति दमअल ऐन फिल वजनाती, और आंखों से आपके आंसू जारी होते. बस ये पढ़ना था कि इमाम ज़ारो कतार रोने लगे, बेकरार होके रोने लगे. और फिर बाद में कहा, देबल खुदा तुझे जज़ाए खैर दे. हाँ आज़ादारो, आज इमाम हुसैन मदीना छोड़ रहे हैं. जब नाना के कब्र के पास आए, खुदा हाफिजी के लिए आए, खिताब हो के कहा, नाना इन्नी अखरुज मिन जिवारी का कुरहा. नाना मैं जा रहा हूँ लेकिन मेरा दिल राजी नहीं. बहुत रोने के बाद उस मकाम से निकले और मुतवज्जे हुए. अपने मादर गिरामी के कब्र की तरफ मुतवज्जे हुए. आप तो जानते हैं جب کوئی بچہ اپنے ماں کے پاس آتا ہے تو دل کھول کے بات کرتا ہے. امام نے بیٹھ کے کہا اماں اماں آپ نے جسے چکی پیس پیس کے پالا وہ آج آپ سے خدا حافظی کر رہا ہے. بہت روئے مولا. بس عزیزو سید الشہداء آئے. حضرت عباس کو، قاسم کو، علی اکبر سے خطاب ہو کے کہا کہ اب تیاری کی جائے، اب ہم جا رہے ہیں. خود مولا نے ایک کرسی منگوائی اور کرسی پر بیٹھ گئے. خواتین خاندان عصمت و طہارت ایک کے بعد دیگر سوار ہونے لگی. جب سب سوار ہو گئے تو مولا نے پوچھا عباس سب سوار ہو گئے؟ عباس نے کہا ہاں مولا، لیکن ثانیہ زہرا تو نہیں آئی. کہا بس مولا وہی باقی ہے. مولا نے اٹھ کے کہا میں خود اس کو لے آتا ہوں. حضرت عباس نے کہا مولا آپ تشریف رکھیے، ہم جاتے ہیں ثانیہ زہرا کو لاتے. میر انیس لکھتا ہے مرثیہ میں، پہنچی جو ہے ناقے کے قریب دختر حیدر، خود ہاتھ پکڑنے کو بڑے سبت پیمبر. خود ہاتھ پکڑنے کو بڑے سبت پیمبر، فضا تو سنبھالی ہوئی تھی گوشے چادر، تھے پردے محمل کو اٹھائے علی اکبر. فرزند کمر بست چپورات راس کھڑے تھے، نالین اٹھا لینے کو عباس کھڑے تھے. بس عزیزو ایک نظارہ ہے، آج اس شان کے ساتھ فاطمہ کی دختر ثانیہ زہرا سوار ہو رہی ہے. بس چند دنوں کے بعد ایک وقت وہ آئے گا کہ زینب ادھر دیکھے گی ادھر دیکھے گی اور کہے گی علی اکبر عباس مدینے میں سوار کرنے آئے تھے، اب کہاں ہو. الا لعنت اللہ علی القوم الظالمین. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسين.